Let's talk about the Checkbook IRA LLC. Now, some people call this a Checkbook-Controlled IRA. Some people call it an IRA LLC. That's what we call it at Directed IRA, and at KKS Lawyers is an IRA LLC. But this Checkbook-Controlled IRA LLC consists of two things. All right, you gotta have these two things to have this IRA LLC. First, you need a self-directed IRA. That's what we do at Directed IRA. And this could be your Roth IRA, your SEP IRA, Health Savings Account, Covered L, Solo K, whatever self-directed account you're using. This is your self-directed IRA over here. I'm just saying IRA generically. The second piece you need to have is an LLC. And this is what KKS Lawyers does. We set up the LLC. You can have some other lawyer do it. Just make sure it's done right. But this is not an LLC you personally own, okay? This has got to be a new LLC set up for the IRA, has some special provisions in the documents for IRAs as an owner. So we've got these two things. I got my self-directed IRA and I've got my LLC. That consists of a IRA LLC. Now, with the self-directed IRA, this is your account that you're going to roll over money to. Again, you can do it at Directed IRA where we handle these accounts. This is coming from Fidelity or wherever your retirement account is. And that money is going to get rolled over into the IRA. The IRA is going to then invest the money into the LLC. It's going to own the LLC, in this case, 100%. Now, you could always have your IRA own assets directly. Like your IRA could own this real estate. If your goal was to own a rental property with your IRA, you can have your IRA just own the property directly. What's going to happen in that instance is the IRA is going to be on title of the property as Directed Trust Company, FBO, Matt Sorensen IRA, or whoever IRA is. That's going to be on the purchase contract, Directed Trust Company, FBO, Matt Sorensen IRA. That's what's going to be on the deed. When there's expenses, you're going to instruct us as custodian of your IRA to pay the expenses. When there's income, income's going to go into the IRA. Now, a lot of real estate clients don't like that. They're not in control. They've got to tell us what to do, check up on things. They don't have access to the money if they're buying a property at auction or something like that. So a lot of them like to use an LLC. What happens there is rather than the IRA going out to buy the property directly, the IRA owns an LLC 100%. And this LLC is whatever you want to call it. Let's just say XYZ Investments LLC. So now your IRA invests cash into the LLC and owns it 100%. It's the 100% member or owner of the LLC. Now XYZ Investments LLC, or whatever you decide to call your LLC, is going to buy the property. XYZ Investments LLC is on the contract to purchase the property. It's going to be on the deed to the property. It'll have money in its LLC business checking account that your IRA invests the cash into. It's going to go into the LLC business checking account. You're cutting the checks to buy or sending the wires. Income from the rental property is going to go into the LLC bank account. And this LLC bank account is separate from all your personal funds, of course. Don't commingle in personal money. The IRA owns this LLC, so this is like sacred cash, right? Retirement plan funds in that LLC checking account. Now, you can be manager of this IRA LLC. Manager of an LLC is like president of the corporation. It's who is the person that can act on behalf of the LLC. Now, there's a couple rules you have to comply with. There's some cases on this, one called Ellis versus Commissioner. And the main thing is you cannot pay yourself a compensation or salary. A guy named Ellis tried to do it. He got audited. He fought it in tax court. He lost. He was paying himself a salary to basically be the manager of his IRA LLC. So you can be the manager. You just got to be careful on how you operate the LLC, and also the documents need to restrict some of these things. So manager compensation, if you're the manager, can't get paid, can't get a salary, nor could your spouse or kids or anyone else who's considered disqualified to your IRA. But you can be manager. You can sign the checks. You can sign the contracts. You can cut the deals. You can go visit the property and show it to a tenant. You could go tell the contractor what to do. And you can't do physical services either, okay? You can't go put on the tool belt and remodel the kitchen if this is a rehab property, let's say. All right, so you're acting in more of a manager and administrative capacity. That's all acceptable to do as manager of the IRA LLC. Now, in this structure here, because the IRA owns the LLC 100%, it's considered a single member LLC for tax purposes. That's really important because that means the IRS does not want a tax return for this LLC. And since your IRA owns the LLC, not you personally, that income is flowing down to your IRA, and there's no tax return that your IRA files either. So in this instance here, my IRA puts cash in the LLC, LLC buys a property with the cash, rental income's coming in, I sell the property to make a profit, right? There's no tax reporting or return going to the IRS in this structure. Now, you do need to keep the LLC active with the state, so whatever states it's set up in. And we usually like to set up the LLC in the state you're buying property. So if you live in Arizona, but you're buying property in Indiana, you're going to do an Indiana LLC, all right? And we usually like to set up the LLC again in the state you're buying property. Sometime in the state where you live, depends on your state, but generally it's going to be the state where you're buying property or other assets. Now remember, you do need the self-directed IRA. You'll have annual account fees there for your IRA. You'll have an annual fee to keep the LLC active. Some states don't have an annual fee, like Arizona, there's no annual fee. California, of course, being one that's got an $800 annual fee. I know, but that's just the California way of doing business. So you want to keep that LLC active. No tax return to the IRS, so you don't have a lot of tax reporting or tax forms you'll need to coordinate with your accountant or at tax time yourself if you're doing your own taxes. Now, you can have multiple assets over here, all right? I could have multiple properties owned by the LLC. I could do a private money loan to some other investor or other party. You know, the LLC can hold multiple assets here. There's also some asset protection benefits here when I have the LLC. If there's let's say someone slips and falls on the rental property. They can't come sue my IRA or sue me personally. They have to sue the LLC, and they can get whatever the LLC has, but they can't come down to the IRA and its other assets, or to me either as manager of the LLC or the person making decisions for the IRA. Okay, they're stuck at the LLC, and you're getting the limited liability treatment that many real estate investors use for any LLC when they're buying property. All right, now that's the IRA LLC, sometimes called the Checkbook-Controlled IRA. Again, we help set up the account at Directed IRA, and we're also able to help you in our law firm, KQS Lawyers. Thanks.